FIFA believed the 2026 World Cup would become the greatest football celebration ever created. Bigger than Qatar, bigger than Russia, bigger than Brazil, three host nations. Massive stadiums, millions of fans traveling across the world for 1 month of football chaos. But now, only months before kickoff, something unexpected is happening. European supporters are not rushing to America. Some supporters appear increasingly hesitant about traveling. Travel demand appears softer than early expectations. Hotel prices are falling. Ticket demand is weakening. And at the center of the controversy is Donald Trump. Because for many football fans across Europe, especially in the Netherlands, the 2026 World Cup no longer feels like just a football tournament. It feels political. It feels uncertain. And for FIFA, that may be the biggest disaster imaginable, because the World Cup survives on atmosphere, noise, crowds, emotion. International supporters are what make the tournament feel alive. Without them, football's biggest stage suddenly starts feeling empty, and that is what makes this situation so unusual. Football fans have traveled through controversy before. They went to Russia, they went to Qatar, they crossed continents for the World Cup because the tournament always felt bigger than politics itself. But now, for the first time, hesitation is spreading before the tournament has even started. Online discussions are exploding across Europe. Fan groups are delaying bookings. Travel agencies are quietly warning supporters to stay cautious, and FIFA is starting to realize this crisis may be growing much faster than expected. The first warning sign did not come from politics. It came from data. Airline bookings from Europe to the United States during the World Cup period began dropping sharply. Amsterdam to America fell dramatically. Frankfurt dropped even harder. Paris slowed down. Barcelona slowed down. Across Europe, travel demand toward American host cities started weakening at the exact moment FIFA expected excitement to explode. That changes everything, because football tournaments are built on movement. Fans crossing borders, airports overflowing with jerseys and flags, entire city centers transforming into giant football festivals. The World Cup is supposed to feel like the center of the world for 1 month, but now analysts are seeing something very different. International supporters appear hesitant about traveling to the United States itself. And slowly, Donald Trump became part of the World Cup conversation. Whether FIFA wanted that or not, behind the scenes, travel companies started adjusting expectations for the summer of 2026. Some airlines quietly reduced optimistic forecasts. Tourism analysts began warning host cities that international spending could fall below projections. And for FIFA executives, the numbers became impossible to ignore. Because declining excitement before a World Cup is something football almost never sees. But then things became much more serious, because this stopped being about statistics and became personal. A Dutch-born man who had spent decades living in America returned after visiting family overseas. When he landed at Chicago O'Hare Airport, immigration authorities detained him, then transferred him between detention facilities. Eventually, he was deported back to the Netherlands. Dutch media exploded with outrage. Suddenly, this was no longer just politics happening somewhere far away, it became emotional. Families in the Netherlands saw someone who had built an entire life in America suddenly lose everything. And for many football supporters, that story completely changed how they viewed traveling to Trump's America during the World Cup, because football fans do not travel carefully and quietly. They travel emotionally, loudly, in giant groups, through airports, train stations, hotels, bars, and crowded city streets. And now many supporters were asking themselves a frightening question. What happens if entering the United States suddenly becomes unpredictable? That fear spread rapidly online. Dutch supporter forums filled with debates about airport security, immigration checks, and possible detentions. Some fan groups even started discussing alternative travel plans, focused entirely on Canada and Mexico instead of American host cities. Slowly, uncertainty itself became part of the World Cup atmosphere. Then came the petition. More than 170,000 people in the Netherlands signed a movement calling for a boycott of the World Cup under Trump's America. That number shocked football media across Europe. because football supporters complain constantly about FIFA corruption, about ticket prices, about politics, but when the World Cup actually arrives, fans almost always come anyway. This time felt different. The boycott movement became organized. Public, political protesters carried petitions directly into parliament. Football federations started monitoring the situation closely. Human rights organizations entered the conversation. Travel agencies started tracking fear toward visiting the United States, and suddenly FIFA found itself trapped between football and geopolitics. And once that happened, the pressure intensified quickly. European media began treating the World Cup like a political controversy instead of a sporting celebration. Sponsors monitored public reaction carefully. Football federations tried avoiding direct statements, but silence only made the tension surrounding the tournament feel even larger. And then FIFA started losing money. Hotel prices in major host cities began falling instead of rising. Large blocks of reserved rooms quietly disappeared. Thousands of ticket commitments reportedly vanished almost overnight. For local businesses, this was terrifying. The World Cup was supposed to generate billions of dollars, packed restaurants, full hotels, endless tourism revenue. Instead, economists started warning America could actually lose international tourism money during the World Cup cycle. That should have been impossible, but the most dangerous detail for FIFA was this: fans were not avoiding the World Cup itself. They were avoiding specific parts of it. Travel demand toward Canadian host cities remained much more stable compared to the United States. Fans still wanted football. They still wanted the atmosphere. But many increasingly appeared more comfortable experiencing that tournament somewhere other than Trump's America. And that may become FIFA's biggest nightmare, because the organization spent years promoting one giant unified North American World Cup. But now, there is growing risk the tournament could psychologically split into two completely different experiences. One side crowded, emotional, international, full of energy. The other side tense, oversecured, politically controversial, and constantly surrounded by headlines about borders and immigration. And Donald Trump remains connected to that perception whether his supporters like it or not. Every immigration story, every airport controversy, every political speech surrounding America feeds directly back into the emotional atmosphere of the World Cup itself. Football cannot separate itself from the country hosting it. That has never happened in World Cup history. Because ultimately, the World Cup has never been only about football. It is about emotion. Strangers singing together in train stations, crowds taking over city streets, fans traveling across oceans for memories they will remember forever. That magic depends on one thing above all else: trust. Fans want to feel they are entering a global celebration rather than a politically tense environment. And right now, many supporters no longer feel certain about that. FIFA still believes football itself can overcome everything. Maybe they are right. Maybe, once the matches begin, the noise inside the stadiums will erase every controversy. For a moment, football has done that before. One legendary goal, one unforgettable upset, one emotional night under the lights, and suddenly the entire world forgets the politics outside the stadium. But right now, months before kickoff, the warning signs are impossible to ignore. Flights are slowing, fans are hesitating, Europe is watching America differently. And the biggest World Cup in history is approaching under a level of political tension. FIFA never expected to become this serious. And if this trend continues, World Cup 2026 may be remembered for something much bigger than football itself, because what is happening right now is bigger than one tournament, bigger than Donald Trump, bigger than FIFA. It is exposing something football has never truly faced before in the modern era: fear changing fan behavior on a global scale. For decades, supporters traveled across continents believing the World Cup was neutral territory, a place where politics paused for 90 minutes. But 2026 is starting to challenge that illusion completely. And the danger for FIFA is not only financial, it is psychological. Once fans begin associating a World Cup with uncertainty instead of celebration, rebuilding that trust becomes almost impossible, especially in Europe, where supporter culture depends entirely on freedom of movement, spontaneity, and massive traveling crowds, empty seats can be hidden on television. Falling hotel prices can be explained away by economists, but missing atmosphere cannot be faked. The silence inside a stadium is something every football fan instantly feels. And if the world's biggest sporting event loses that emotional energy, then FIFA may discover the harshest reality of all: football without the fans is just another business.